What is going on, I've Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about the 16-8 method. Is the 16-8 method the most powerful intermittent fasting diet or protocol? Now, I wanted to make this video because 16-8 gets somewhat of a bad rap. Not so much from newcomers, but from people who have been part of the intermittent fasting community for a while now. I'm going to break down the misconception on the 16-8 in this video. Stay tuned. Alright guys, quickly before we start, this video is brought to you by yours truly, Fledge Fitness and the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. With its aluminum handle and swivel design, you can't go wrong with the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. Please keep in mind the jump rope is sold out due to this pandemic event, but the Fledge Fitness team is looking at a mid-June release. So for the first time ever, if you want to pre-order your jump rope, you can now do that. The link will be down in the description, or you can click on the top right-hand corner of this video. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the video. The first thing that I'm going to touch on in terms of the 16-8 and why it actually is very powerful is because there are more studies involving the 16-8 than all of the other methods. Believe it or not, although it's called time-restricted feeding in many of the studies, that time-restricted feeding eating window is 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, what does it matter? I fast longer when I do 20 hours, or I fast longer when I do 23 hours, or when I do prolonged fasting. That is true, but data is really the most important thing. And to have more data on one protocol versus all of the others is pretty compelling, because you can feel comfortable knowing that if you follow the 16-8 method, that you are in line with most of the studies out there looking at intermittent fasting. The only thing that rivals the 16-8 protocol as a methodology in multiple studies is alternate day fasting, the modified version, and the 5-2 diet, which in both allows you to eat while fasting. So of the top 3 studies that you can find out there, the 16-8 is the only one where it doesn't allow the participants to eat during their fasting window. So if you want to follow a protocol based solely on data alone, the best data is where they use multiple methodologies, and all these individual time-restricted feeding studies use multiple different methodologies, multiple different crossover designs to see what the differences are between caloric restriction or weight resistance or resistance training and intermittent fasting with the 16-8 method. Because that information exists out there and the meta-analysis can be put together using 16-8 very comfortably because of the amount of information that we have on it, and from the variety of people that have partaken in these studies, from resistance trained males, unhealthy obese individuals, healthy obese individuals, overweight people who are healthy, overweight people who are unhealthy, people with diabetes, etc., etc. So that should give you some sort of comfort that they do see the benefits behind the 16-8 method in terms of weight loss, fat burning, oxidative stress reduction, blood pressure reduction, blood glucose regulation. All of these things are still intact when looking at those studies, but there are more of them. So that means that it's a higher likelihood that what you're seeing in these studies can actually reciprocate itself with you, because we're continuing to see it over and over, regardless of the amount of studies. There aren't as many 20-hour fast studies or even 23-hour fast studies. So keep that in mind. Also, the 16-8 method is the easiest one to do while still crossing over that rewards threshold. Now, what do I mean by this? It's the easiest one that you can actually latch onto while going above that metabolic switchover period. And if you want to know what the metabolic switchover is, I will link the study below by Dr. Stephen Anton. They actually looked at 16 clinical trials and compared it to caloric restriction to show that body fat was reduced more in those that were doing the 16-8 method. But he also looked at when that event was occurring, when that fat burning event took place. And it was during the metabolic switchover. And that metabolic switchover takes place anywhere between 8 to 12 hours. So just so that you understand, comparing it to something like 12 hours of fasting, if it takes you specifically 12 hours to get into that metabolic switchover and you're only fasting for 12 hours, you will never receive the benefits of the switchover, because it's how long you fast after those 12 hours that give you that fasted state and the benefits of being in the fasted state. 12 hours of fasting would initiate that benefit. And then at that point, all the hours after that is when you're in the fasted state receiving those benefits. So 16-8 puts you in the clear, letting you know that if you're 8 hours or 12 hours, no matter what, you are getting a good amount of hours while being in a fasted state, but also still being an easier form of entry for someone who hasn't done intermittent fasting before. And finally, for those who don't want to involve others or have anybody ask them questions about them doing an intermittent fasting protocol because you're focused and you don't want any negativity, the 16-8 is the most stealth version of intermittent fasting that you could acquire, because you have so much time to eat. You can kind of shift it in ways where if you were to be with friends and family, you would still be eating during that time and no one is the wiser. So the 16-8 carries a lot of benefits with it while still ensuring that you're in the metabolic switchover. So please don't let anyone tell you that the 16-8 isn't as good as the 20-hour fast or isn't as good as the 23-hour fast. It is as good. And with the multiple studies that it has, you can make an argument that it can be better. Now, we do know that fasting longer has its benefits, but there aren't as many studies for fasting longer than there is for the 16-8 specifically. Just the design, just the method of 16-8 specifically, there are a multitude of studies with that methodology. If anyone's doing the 16-8 and it feels bad, I hope this video helps you understand that what you're doing is just fine. I'm gonna go ahead and link that metabolic switchover study down in the description below. And of course, I want to thank my patrons for my Patreon. I'm gonna go ahead and put their names right up here. And as always, guys, I'll see you on Sunday for another FAQ. Peace!